Hey everybody, I'm Troy Haynes, founder of iAMconnected. It's great to have you here. I want to welcome you to today's session titled You Are Your Best Asset, using your biofeedback data to measure and improve your flow, coherence, sleep and readiness. We're going to learn how business owners just like you are using your personalized data to optimize their day-to-day performance and well-being. This is going to be so awesome, you guys. I can't wait to get started. I appreciate you tuning in. I hope you're excited. As a business owner myself, I know you're going to love it. So, as you would have seen when you registered for this case study, we're going to cover off three really powerful keys to understanding how we can really optimize not just your potential, but the human capital within your organizations. For the most part, this case study is directed towards you, business owners. However, as we go through, I want to encourage you to consider how totally revolutionary this would be to the human capital within your organization if you had your employees opting into this also. I'm keen for you to have that in mind as we go through. So, what we're going to cover off today, like I mentioned, is three keys. The first key is how, using cutting-edge technologies, we're moving into a new era of personalization that will enable you to gain an advantage. Secondly, we'll look at why business reporting is moving beyond P&L, balance sheets, and other business performing reports into measuring human capital using our biometrics. And lastly, understanding what to measure, why we measure it, and how we measure it to give us our daily KPIs to optimize performance, well-being. You know, this really is cutting edge application of this technology. You won't see this anywhere else, and I'm really excited to be presenting this to you. Before I get into it, I want to take a step back for a minute and share with you some context of why I have a passion and a deep understanding for what I'm about to teach in this case study. I grew up a skinny pigeon-chested kid in a small farming town in Queensland, Australia, where I worked on the farms until a couple of years after I finished school. My reality was I had no bloody clue who I was nor what I wanted to do. I struggled to really make sense of the world, and to a large extent I found myself overwhelmed, lost and suffering in a world that I didn't really understand. But like most pain, it either pins us down or motivates us to move forward. In my case, it put me on a path to understand myself and the world. So I started reading books, doing courses, attending workshops, finding mentors and coaches, all of which fostered a love of personal evolution and developed a deep appreciation for two key things that fundamentally changed my life: meditation and business. Meditation is a tool to control the mind. The mind I associate with that constant stream of thoughts and emotions, that inner narrative self, like that the voice that we have in our heads, the mind. Osho, one of my favorite quotes is that the mind is a terrible master but an amazing servant. But to a large extent, it's running the show, just constantly reacting to the world around us. And business, as a vehicle for greater fulfillment and impact. Neither of them are super easy, but one like the other, when you get it, it changes the way the game of life is played. In 2004, after completing an undergraduate degree in marketing, I started an online travel business that I built, managed for 6 years and sold in 2010. But during this time, I found myself practicing meditation out of necessity because, business is fucking hard. It's super fucking hard. But as I got better at meditation, I found myself increasingly detached to that narrative self, that noise, that voice in my head, pigeon-chested, shy kid, lost. And meditation was a key tool that helped me to see that I wasn't that voice. And more I found myself in the flow, intuitive, creative, on purpose, and also inspired by ideas. I come to understand that there was a space outside that narrative self where inspired ideas come from. So I started a startup and innovation incubator in Cairns called The Space, and worked with key stakeholders to build out an ecosystem to support entrepreneurship in our region. As part of that work, I was named Innovation Champion by the Premier of Queensland and inducted into the Queensland Innovation Wall of Fame, and invited to sit alongside other high-performing individuals on the Queensland Government's $80 million investment fund, where we invest in early-stage ventures. More recently, in 2018, I was invited to work with the transformative technology community globally, of which I act as an Australasian lead, where we're building an ecosystem to support entrepreneurs and innovators who are developing technologies and companies focused around mental health, well-being, and human performance. Among other roles, I help to coordinate the global thought leaders who write quarterly reviews on key verticals across transformative technology clusters, and I'll talk more about these verticals a little later. As Nicole Bradford, co-founder of Transformative Technology, says, the human mind is on fire. People aren't coping. Through transformative technologies, we're taking the technologies that have been taxing our cognition, our relationships, well-being, mental health, and pointing them in a new direction that supports us to live in a higher state of consciousness. As business owners, the game we play is tough, so we're exposed to even greater struggles. It tests our mental fitness. I'm sure you can appreciate what I'm saying. One of the many recent reports I was reading highlights that over 50% of small business owners report having high levels of psychological distress, mainly due to working long hours, social isolation, customer demands, cash flow issues, and conflicting demands between home and work. I know you appreciate what I'm saying. It's tough, right? We need better solutions, and that is what we're going to talk about today. That's what we're going to look at. If this is you, I want you to know that you're not alone. I get it, but there's things that we can do to turn it around. So let me show you what we're working on. So the first key that we're looking at today is how using cutting-edge technologies, we're moving into a new era of personalisation that will enable you to gain an advantage. And by advantage, we mean not just moving beyond the day-to-day stress, anxiety, overwhelm, doubt, worry, but developing your skills for great access to flow, intuition, creativity, meaning, insight. These technologies are cutting edge, and we're applying them how we're applying them is changing the game. It's so freaking exciting, and I'm privileged to be sharing these with you. So through the work that we're doing with transformative technology, we're supporting entrepreneurs and innovators to develop technologies to support mental health, well-being, and human performance. I mentioned that. But it's not just performance. It's moving humankind away from stress, anxiety, depression, and towards thriving, advanced emotional and cognitive capabilities on levels that we've never seen before, never experienced before. Using 12 major areas of transformative technologies, and these are examples of these technologies include like sensor tech, wearables, hearables, data tech, AI, big data, neurotech, EEG, fMRI, Neuro Stim. There's a whole bunch of different stims, from transcranial stimulation, transcranial random noise stimulation, transcranial magnetic stimulation. This is outside the scope of what we're actually doing right now with business owners like you, but it's good to show you the scope of what we're actually working on. Biofeedback tech, absolutely some of the things that we're looking at using with business owners. Biotech, genetics, biostim tech, vagus nerve, peripheral nerves, perception tech, AR/VR, XR, sleep tech, healthy spaces tech. So like creating an environment, we spend like 85% of our day inside, 95% if you include commuting. Like, how can our environment support our well-being? And it goes beyond just getting beanbags and ping pong tables. App tech and robotics. All of this may seem like a lot of jargon when you look at this list here, and it is. It is. And I'm here to guide you through it though, so don't sweat it. As we get into today's case study, we're going to focus in around 3 key technologies: the neurotech, biofeedback tech, and sleep tech. If you're interested in these other forms of technologies and how we're applying them, keep connected. I'll share more on these moving forward. But like I said, we're going to focus in on a few of these that are particularly relevant to business owners today. What's exciting about the technologies, the transformative technologies, is the tools are all around us now. We're leveraging converging technologies. Through the global ecosystem, we're leveraging advances in neuroscience and behavioral psychology so that we can enable mental health, emotional well-being, and thriving at a scale that's never been seen before. Like thriving, it's not about just being okay, it's like how happy can we be? In an era where we're giving so much of our personalised data to large organisations in the day-to-day use of their applications, it's critical that we take action now so that we can know ourselves better than our algorithms. And that's what we're talking about, knowing ourselves inside and out better than the algorithms do, so that they can't manipulate us. We're using these technologies to assess, so understand our individual makeup, our personalised data. Because the reality is, what's good for one person isn't may not be good for another person. We're all individuals, right? We can tailor solutions relevant to you as an individual. The technology enables us to capture the data. The data creates awareness, and with that awareness, we can make conscious decisions specific to us. So it's no longer about following somebody else's dogma. And then we amplify that. We bring attention to that which was previously unconscious, so that we can enhance. So we can enhance the positive and move away from the negative. What we measure, we can improve. And I'm sure you can appreciate that as a business owner. And connecting with a broader community of like-minded people so that we can leverage off the learnings of each other. So really, really powerful. Here's some examples of some of the technologies that we're playing with across sleep tech. There's Oura rings, meditation tech, there's Calm, there's focus bands, there's a whole range of different EEG type devices that help us to read how our brain behaves. Amplified therapists, stress management tools, corporate platforms, emotional recognition tools. I'm not going to go into these into detail, but I just wanted to give you an example of like the technologies that are emerging and how we're applying them. So mood management, positive psychology, behavioral change, focus, emotion tracking, HRV training. A great example of the champions of the Shengar is a HRV type technology. This is actually for kids, so it's a little bit off topic, but if you've got kids, you probably appreciate this. It's a HRV device and it's a trading game, and their spells gain power when they're more relaxed. So it's teaching them how to regulate their state, and that amplifies the power of their spells. So indirectly, they're getting trained to regulate their emotional capabilities. So that's really powerful. VR, AR, pattern recognition, there's heaps of different technologies. And like I said, I'll talk more about these if you keep connected. Today I'm going to focus in on 3 key ones. These are intelligent assistants. You've probably got a bunch of these. You may have a Google or an Alexa in your place, but like one of the top 3 terms in 2017, a new command entered the top 3 for Alexa commands. And that was like, help me relax. So we're already turning towards our technology for support in our emotional well-being and fitness. Oops. And mood subscriptions, neuro stimulation, like I was mentioning earlier, personalised foods, gut biome, haptics. Like the touch ring's really, really cool. It's like a ring that you and a partner has, and through the rings, no matter where you are, you can feel each other's heartbeat. So it helps to stimulate connection. It might be good for business colleagues as well. Maybe. Depends what's going on. So, which brings me to key number 2. Of all of these emerging technologies, it's easy to find yourself, overwhelmed. And that's why, as part of this case study, we're going to focus in around 3 of them: neurotech, biostim, and sleep tech. We'll talk more about them in key number 3. But before I get into that, I feel it's important to consider why we should truly consider this. Why business reporting is moving beyond P&Ls, balance sheets, and other business reporting into measuring human capital using our biometrics, and why it's important that we really need to make this leap, and why now. So for the first time in human history, need, demand, and means have come together to make prioritizing human thriving real. Need, the economic impetus to value how people think and feel, is here because stress, anxiety, and despair is showing up in our healthcare costs. And I'll talk more about what that looks like, but that's for companies and it's for countries. Demand, the stigma is shifting around mental health, where people are more willing to talk about how they're feeling. And young people around the world, they expect to and they want to be happy. And the means, the technology's here. And this is why now we're at this beautiful intersection, this beautiful crossroad. If we were to look broadly, globally, the Global Wellness Institute says that unwellness at work costs the US economy $2.2 trillion annually. Here's how they came up with that figure. Disengaged workers cost $550 billion. And I'll talk a little bit more about disengagement as we go through this, but that's in lost productivity, while workers with chronic disease cost companies $1.1 billion. The rest of the tab stems from $250 billion in work-related injuries and illness, and $300 billion in work-related stress. I understand that this is US data, but I feel it relates globally. 2.2 trillion, that's a big number. If we bring it back to Australia, 4.2 million Australians received mental health related prescriptions in 2017-18, and 9.1 billion was spent in mental health in 2016-17. So the Australian government's announced the number of mental health related measures in the 2019 federal budget, providing $736.6 million for mental health and suicide prevention initiatives over 7 years. It's like we said, the mind is on fire. It's not business as usual. We need to look at new ways of performing. And if we look at, how this shows up for business owners, an article published by Smart Company suggests that most entrepreneurs aren't okay. Australia's small business owners are in a mental health crisis. The prevalence of mental health issues among small business owners in Australia are more than double the national average. More than half, 57% of Australian entrepreneurs are struggling, compared with 1 in 5 in the broader population. And we know why, because business is a tough sport, right? It's hard. 57% of small business owners are overstressed. 8 in 10 are sacrificing sleep to keep the lights on, and most are paying themselves less than the Australian average wage. This is not sustainable. If that's you, then you're not alone. If it's not, if you're part of the other 43%, hang in there, because what we're talking about is also next level of human performance, which I feel is super relevant. Another report by MYOB, who surveyed 757 Australian small business operators to understand the extent of which mental health conditions such as depression and anxiety affected small business community, and how much of this was directly linked to running a business. The data found that businesses with more employees are most likely to be affected, with 62% of business operators with 5 to 9 employees reported that they had experienced a mental condition versus 38% of sole traders. So, managing people is tough as well. And in another report, Georgie Harmon, CEO of a not-for-profit called Beyondblue, said, almost 1/3 of small business owners report having high levels of psychological distress, mainly due to working hours, working long hours, social isolation, customer demands, cash flow issues, and conflicting demands between home and work. It's what we talked about before. The problem is real. That's why I'm excited to share this with you. I have a question for you. As a business owner, why do we do key reporting? Why do we have key reports? It's to get a sense of how our business is performing, right? To understand objectively where we're at, and then create strategies and goals to help us to improve our position. Without this, without reporting, we're sort of flying blind. And really, it's only a matter of time before our business crashes, because we don't have the feedback that enables us to correct course. The same is true for us. What I've been wanting you to appreciate is in the presentation so far is that we now have the means to generate the reporting on our most important assets. Us as business owners, our human capital. The reality is, if we go down, the whole freaking ship could go down. That's a risk that we can mitigate against by optimizing us. Even if you're currently tracking well, using these technologies, we have the means to take your performance and productivity to a whole new level. So as we discussed earlier, the need for this sort of human-centered reporting is here. What we can measure, we can improve upon. Which brings me to key number 3, understanding what to measure, why we measure it, and how we can measure it to give us our daily KPIs. Like I mentioned previously, I'm going to focus in on 3 key areas of technology, the neurotech, biofeedback tech, and sleep tech, to generate key reporting that we need to optimize our performance. It's like a stack. Let me just pop this video over here. There we go. So firstly, a little background. This here is a map of the different brainwave states that we move in and out of throughout the course of a normal day, from being wide awake to being sound asleep. So wide awake to being sound asleep. Got a pen. We measure these with a range of devices across neurotech and sleep tech. I'm going to explain them and why understanding them is super important to you. But before I do, I want to share a personal story of why I started learning around this. See, I started on a personal development journey in around 1998 because I felt lost, disconnected, lonely, unhappy in life in general. And underneath it all, it was causing me to suffer. I previously mentioned this. A lot of that personal growth materials that I was learning pointed towards meditation as a tool that could help. So I started learning, and like most people, I really sucked at it. There was so much noise in my head, I couldn't focus. I found myself sitting there lost in thought. My mind was like really freaking busy. But meditation as a thing kept coming up in my world, and I went from technique to technique and teacher to teacher until eventually I had a practice that gave me a sense that I was on the right track and really, really supported me as a business owner in the business world. I remember this one day back in 2004, working on my startup, feeling really overwhelmed, not knowing what I needed to do next, just not knowing where do I go. So I thought I need to meditate. So I did it as best as I knew how at the time, and I felt so much better. Like a lot of the clutter that was filling my head, I realized didn't even matter. And as a result of meditating, I felt clear on the actions that I needed to take. I remember thinking, why don't I meditate more often? Because back then it was very sporadic. Progressively, it's become part of a daily practice, a practice of taking control of my attention. So in around 2012, I began teaching meditation. And as part of a practice, I wanted to teach entrepreneurs. I wanted to teach entrepreneurs my practice because I felt it was really relevant to entrepreneurs. And back then in the business world, most entrepreneurs' eyes would either roll in their head or glaze over when they hear the word meditation. Meditation was like for hippies and monks, right? Not high-performing business people. So that's when I started to learn around the science of what was happening within me so I could scientifically validate it and share it with other business type people in a way that they could relate to. But what I discovered when I was learning around this was more than just a tool to convince people to try meditation. It unlocked why most people were feeling stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, frustrated, annoyed, in this mental fog and reactive. Why most people don't get the most important things done. And in reality, what's making people sick long term if they get stuck in this state of stress, anxiety, overwhelm. So let me explain it here. Like I said, from being wide awake to being sound asleep, we move through different brainwave states as measured by neurotech devices. Without getting too geeky, brainwaves are produced by synchronized electrical pulses from masses of neurons communicating with each other. Brainwaves are detected using sensors placed on the head, in our case, the prefrontal cortex. Brainwave speed is measured in hertz, which is a cycle per second, and amplitude, which is the distance from the crest of the wave, which is the peak of the wave, back to the resting point, which is the midline. These are so small they're measured in microvolts. The higher the amplitude, the lower the frequency, which, fundamentally you don't necessarily need to know. It just may make more sense as I show you some of the slides that are coming up. It's important to know, it's not just all or nothing with the different brainwaves. The brainwave states can be acting, have their function in different parts of the brain, and the brain can emit different frequencies at any one time. So it's not just all on or all off. These frequencies are happening, but there can be a dominant sense of this frequency, which is I'm going to talk about at the moment. But we gain coherence in the brain when there isn't this overriding effect from a high frequency brainwave state like beta. And that's particularly relevant to what I'm going to share. I know this may sound like a whole lot of jargon, so let me explain it more simply. These brainwave states, like I said, from being wide awake to being sound asleep, we move through 5 predominant brainwave states. And these are measured in hertz. And this is like cycles per second. So delta is 0 to 3, 4 to 7 for theta, alpha 8 to 12, beta 13 to 34, and gamma 35 to 100 plus, relatively. And I'm going to start at beta, because beta is like an awake state, a doing state. It's a state when we're multitasking, but what happens when we multitask is our attention gets fractionated. So, and what happens when our attention gets fractionated is we start accumulating stress and anxiety, and our output and our quality of work goes down. And we tend to worry more, we feel busy, but we become more reactive, we're getting less done. As business owners, and particularly if you've got staff, when you get into the office and you've got these multiple things pulling on your attention, what happens? We end up frazzled, we end up in this state of ineffectiveness, mind-dominated state, so the narrative self gets louder. We tend to feel overwhelmed, and the thing is, what I'm saying is, like, long term, if we get stuck in this state, which a lot of business owners are, they get stuck in this beta state day in, day out, and it's causing illness long term, and mistakes occur as well. The thing is, below that, alpha is more like a flow-like state. It's a state when we're focused on a single task. Because as we cycle through this, we cycle out of alpha, and I'll talk more about that in a sec, out of alpha as we come out of the sleep cycle. So we have this glow of alpha in the morning. So it's often that you get almost like a day's worth of work done in the first couple of hours when you wake up in the morning, or late at night after the distractions and interruptions of the day are finished, getting back into alpha as you're going back down into getting ready for sleep. So it tends to be we have high output, high quality of work because we're focused. Like, I know first thing in the morning, that's when I'm my most productive. And it's not until the distractions start. But there's things that we can do to guard against those distractions. And what I want to impress upon you is we can consciously bring ourselves down out of beta into alpha and theta, and we'll talk more about theta in a sec. Consciously, and meditation is the tool to do that. So as opposed to going into the office environment, losing your shit, getting overwhelmed, and then being useless for the rest of the day, or ineffective, reacting, maybe focusing on menial tasks that don't really matter that much, you can bring yourself down consciously in a matter of minutes into states like alpha and theta and be effective again. The thing is, well-being is, we tend to feel good when we're in alpha as well because serotonin's released. We have a greater sense of flow, single focus. And we have more creative ideas in that. And I'm going to come back and explain why that is, because it's linked to gamma. Gamma is preceded by alpha, but I'll explain theta and delta first, and I'll come back to gamma. Theta is a deepening of this. It's kind of like in a deep meditation state, the absence of the narrative self is quite pronounced. So there's not this noise in our head that's judging, criticizing, doubting, worrying. That's gone. And in that, we have the ability to be able to hear our intuition, our instinct. We have a greater sense of knowing. So it's really, like when I have the purpose conversation with my clients, it's, you can't think your way to your purpose. You can't get to your purpose from up here in beta because the mind's making too much noise. Your purpose comes to you through inspired thought, through your intuition. It's like part of who we are. So it's a matter of being able to quieten the mind so that you can actually hear it. So purpose is, so theta is a really, really powerful state to be in as well. And it's linked to conscious healing, which is probably not something I'm going to go into so much today, but in terms of releasing traumas and triggers that we have, it becomes really, really powerful for de-energizing traumas, which is part of something that we do as well. It's like, if you're finding yourself triggered or aggressive or angry, or you've got something that triggers you into a suffering, there's absolutely things that we can do to release that so that you can be more effective, be more on. So these are really, really powerful states. What I find though is, like, this is disengagement, which I mentioned earlier. This is where people are disengaged because they've lost control of their cognitive ability and their emotional ability to a large extent. They become almost like a zombie. And if that's our workforce, I know you've experienced it, I know you have at some point through your weeks, but so have our employees, and if that's them, think about the impact of our productivity. Delta is a deep dreamless sleep. It's the bottom end of our sleep cycle. Human growth hormones released, great for regeneration. Really, really powerful state. We need to be getting our deep sleep or NREM sleep, which is where we are here. Coming back up to gamma. Gamma is like a short, sharp burst. It's like a super high frequency. So there's multiple cycles in a second, in a very low amplitude. But it's like an aha moment, insight, a new idea. So what happens is we're in alpha, and it's like we're in this relaxed state, and little bits of data come together, data bit, boom, insight. And so we have a new idea. I've got colleagues or clients that say, oh, my best idea is on the toilet, or my best idea is in the shower. Why is that? You take time out for yourself, and it's all away from thinking about what it is that you're doing, and then all of a sudden, boom, insight, answer, got it. When I was learning around this, I thought it'd be so cool if there's this thing that you could go to and connect into alpha and theta, because it's so powerful, these states, right? Cultivate them. It turns out there is. It's called the planet Earth. The Earth's frequency is 7 to 8 hertz. So that's why spending time in nature is such a popular recreational activity. It's like getting out of the mental noise that we have in beta and connecting into alpha and theta. And so that's why getting out in nature is such a popular recreational activity. How do we use that in our day-to-day environment? This is just sort of background. I want to show you soon how we're using technology to connect into this. To a large extent, it's linked to meditation, like consciously teaching people how to control their states. I see that people are stuck in one gear to a large extent, consciously, unconsciously stuck in one gear. What we want to do is teach you consciously how to move into a 5-gear engine. How do you move into alpha? How do you cultivate theta? How do you cultivate delta, and then gamma? These are all important states that we can consciously move through, and that's what we're talking about. Super powerful. This here, I just wanted to highlight what the brainwave states look like in terms of amplitude, because as we go into these other slides, it'll make more sense. You'll see here that delta, this is in a second. You'll see it's a low frequency and higher amplitude, so a bigger wave. And you'll see gamma, higher frequency and smaller amplitude. So amplitude is from the midline to the crest of the wave. I also just wanted to highlight, some of the same things relevant for sleep. What happens is we become so overwhelmed and stressed that it starts to affect our sleep. A normal sleep rhythm kind of goes like this. So say this is 10 p.m. Go to sleep, 90-minute increments. You cycle it through here, and then say 6 a.m. But you get this beautiful glow of alpha going into the morning that you can leverage. And same late at night going into the evening. In a healthy person, you can be productive then as well. But what happens is, for business owners, we get stuck in beta throughout the day. We don't get anything done. So then we come home here in the afternoon, and then we have to bring our work home. Or you might have some drinks to try to numb the beta that you've had throughout the day. And then that started affecting our sleep, because we're not getting stuff done, and then unconsciously it starts playing on us, and often we can find ourselves waking up at 3 a.m. and then not getting back to sleep, or unable to get to sleep, and it creates this vicious cycle, because during the day we're not getting what we need to get done, and then at night we're not sleeping to get rested so that we're more effective throughout the day. So it just becomes this cycle of non-performing. So what we're doing is we're breaking that cycle. We're showing you how we're using technology to be able to break that cycle. Yeah, because, again, if our employees are doing that, this is like massively destructive to our productivity. So as a coach working with business owners, I teach you how to control your brainwave states effectively and move out of like a high beta frequency and into cultivating alpha and theta. This is a client's brainwave states at the beginning of a program working with me. The client is a business owner. He's got a team of 50 across 3 states of Australia, travels frequently. He's got a wife and child. It's a lot of pressure, a lot of responsibility, a lot of expectation. Without getting too geeky, on this chart we see 3 things. There's amplitude. This is amplitude. So that's the height of the wave. And then here you can see the different colors for the different frequencies. In short, we want clients to be able to bring down the amplitude across all brainwave states, because amplitude across all the brainwave states means that the brain is using a lot of energy and can cause an electrical meltdown. We use a neurotech device to gain this data using meditation. I teach you how to effectively control your state. For me, meditation in large part is controlling your brainwave states and optimizing the function of the brain, which I feel is pretty important, right? Like I shared with you previously. Through the neurotech, you and I, we both have access to this data, which provides the benefits to us, such as accountability, around, are you doing the training? So that we can develop a habit of meditation. So from this, I can see each day if you are doing the training, doing it for the prescribed time. In addition, we get to see the quality of your meditation, and I can see what might be going on from you. And each person is different. Using the tech enables me to tailor the training to support your needs. I can see here that the client's brain is using a lot of energy, as evidenced by the amplitude. It's high. I won't go into the specifics of it. But then also there's these peaks, these ongoing peaks, which is like a distracted, an unfocused brain. So this is representative of poor performance, a sense of overwhelm, stress, and anxiety. Whereas we see a different chart here for the same person. I know that this person had some shit go down, as you can see, but the amplitude, it's actually even higher. It was only 100 on the other one, but it's actually even higher. The reality is in business is that shit does happen, and we have storms that come and go, and stuff goes wrong, but it's our resilience to be able to cope under pressure that enables us to perform, even when the bombs, metaphorically, are going off all around us. You can see here how much energy his brain was using at the beginning. He was triggered, high stress, anxiety, but over the space of 20 minutes, well, actually it was less than 20 minutes, so you see 6:06, and then this is, what do we hear down here, 6 minutes. He was able to take back control of his neurology. How powerful is that? How often throughout the day has your effectiveness and your productivity grinded to a halt because your head's been in this emotionally and cognitively retarded, this wreck? If you're like most business owners, when this happens, you become reactive, emotional, and end up defaulting back to menial tasks that don't really contribute much to the ongoing success of your business. Here with these skills, you're back in the game in minutes. Even more profound and powerful is the more that you do this practice, over time, the bombs that would normally trigger you, they start losing their charge. And particularly, like I said, we start de-energizing the triggers. And you don't have this massive surge of energy being consumed by your brain. We're just on, which I feel it's pretty awesome. If we look here, the same client, here's other data streams that we use, sleep tech and biofeedback devices that autonomously, so it's effortlessly provide us information that we can use to level our performance day to day. As business owners, we tend to burn the candle at both ends, and the key things suffer, like sleep, mental and physical health, time with family and friends, all of which directly impact on our ability to perform. And we find ourselves stuck in loops of showing up but not really effectively performing because physically and mentally, we're spent. I always say to my clients, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Whilst there's going to be times that you need to sprint, we need to run the race like a marathon and prepare for the long term. So here we're aiming, what we measure, we can improve. Here we're aiming for a sleep score of 80 at least. Activity score of 100, it's just about movement in the body, and a daily readiness score of 80. And this provides a foundation of sufficient rest, exercise, and recovery to be on each day. Time at work doesn't equal effectiveness. I hope people are starting to appreciate that. It's not about just showing up, it's about performing, and we can do more in less time if we know how, and that's what we're talking about. Again, without getting too geeky, I'm going to briefly show you how these scores are calculated. I'm just going to do it briefly. It's probably outside the context of this video, so I'm just going to quickly run through this. But you can see 3 areas. There's sleep. There's, let me just move this dude here that's talking to you over there. And there's readiness, and then there's activity. If we look at sleep, determined by a number of characteristics, including total sleep. So that's the total sleep here, an amount of awake time. The REM sleep is really important, NREM sleep, and that calculates your sleep score. Having adequate REM and NREM, which is the deep sleep, is super important for effective brain function. Too many nights of inadequate REM and NREM sleep, and our performance and well-being, it suffers considerably. There's a lot of noise out there professing that you sleep less. We get our REM sleep in the earlier hours of the morning, and so if you're cutting your sleep short, you're not getting that, and you wake up groggy. Your memory's not as good because that's is when we're processing the information to memory, to longer term memory in that point. So really, really important. Our readiness contributors include the sleep score, which we just looked at here. Our activity, like how much movement we did the night before, which is the day before, which is this. Heart rate variability whilst we sleep, and our body temperature. We measure heart rate variability. It provides a measure of naturally occurring beat-to-beat changes in our heart rate and rhythms. What we learn is it serves as a critical method for gauging human health and resilience. Numerous studies show HRV as a key indicator for psychological resiliency and behavioral flexibility, and can affect our ability to adapt effectively to stress and emotional demands. So it's a key indicator. There are behaviors though that affect our HRV, like simple things like drinking alcohol, even in small doses, eating sugary food, and this is the same with sleep. Some of the things that we look at straight away to help improve how people are showing up in their sleep and in their performance. So sugary foods, crappy foods, they affect your HRV and consequently your readiness. You can see here, if I was looking at this here, maybe if I looked at this one here and this one here, as a HRV, it's lower, and I can see that's then looking at a readiness score of, sorry, I'm confused these. This is the sleep score here. Sorry, these are the readiness score. The readiness score is 74, 66, so it is quite low. So maybe it could have been late night sugary treats or alcohol or something like that. And the thing is, we get notes from our clients to say what they actually did. So it can be something as simple as that. All right, we need to change that behavior. And then activity. Activity is based on movement, balance of active and inactive time, and recovery as well. So I won't go into that in too much more detail. This same client, before implementing a few strategies, this is a week on. Our sleep score from the previous week has gone up from 65 to 74, from 93 to 97, and from 77 to 80. Again, what we measure we can improve upon. Not huge, but it's incrementally, week on week, improving it. All in all, we bring this data together in a simple report. This report provides you and I an updated daily and metrics, which is accessible through iAMconnected. They consist of a combination of objective and subjective inputs. I haven't talked too much about the subjective stuff, but there's subjective data inputs as well, which we use. And we can see here week 1 and week 3, through observation and support, there's already been a consistent, like an improving consistency, like a lot of gaps here, on point here. And so, a consistency of effort, improvement in numerous data points here. So using the metrics, we catch up one-on-one with me, and we formulate strategies to iterate on your performance. We find that these base metrics are providing an exceptional foundation for performance, well-being, moving beyond stress, anxiety, and overwhelm. Clients are consistently improving because we're using data that was previously unconscious and we're making it conscious. This is allowing us to quickly and easily break old habits and instill new supportive ones. It's so powerful, guys. And if it's just you and your team, I'm sure you can appreciate how powerful this is. But if you're running a team of people, imagine the capacity that you're losing in human capital. What if it was a program that you offered members of your workforce to self-select into? And we have an increasing number of business operators, business owners doing that, offering this to their employees so that they can self-select into it. It's only relatively early days, but I'm really excited, and I can't wait to report in 6 months how we're tracking with that. As I previously mentioned, the Global Wellness Institute, that report, there was 550 billion in lost productivity from disengaged workers. So we've got a team of zombies out there, showing up. I know what it's like to sit in front of the computer, just being mental fuzz, not being effective, but part of the job is you got to sit there. Like, what if we had metrics to help support them so that you knew what was going on for them? And it's not just about their working life, it's their home life as well. It's about them as a person. It's like a well-being solution for them, supporting them. But well-being, it's more than, like you go to the doctor and the first thing they offer you is antidepressants. And that's not well-being. That's like putting a Band-Aid on something. And performance, it's not like I drink coffee, but performance is more than drinking coffee. And being ignorant is no longer an option. The risk and what we have to lose, it's far too great, and the answer is so accessible now. We're in an era where you can truly begin to know ourselves in ways previously inaccessible. You have the opportunity to know yourself and optimize the best asset that you have, and that is you. In this case study, I've showed you how cutting-edge technologies are moving into an era of personalization that will enable you to gain an advantage. And there'll be there's so many emerging technologies. The time to start maximizing the value of them is now. We looked at why business reporting is moving beyond P&L, balance sheet, and other business performance reports into measuring human capital using your biometrics. The pressure mentally and physically on business is real. The demand, the stigma around mental health is shifting. We want well-being, we want to be happy, and we want high performance. It means the technologies are here to help provide personalized biometrics. And lastly, I showed you, what to measure, why we measure it, and how we measure it to give us our personalized daily KPIs to optimize performance and well-being. My job is to work with business owners just like you, to train you to control your brainwave states, to consciously move between. Let me just move this guy's video. There we go. Consciously train you to move between the different brainwave states. So like 5 gears of we're stuck in 1 gear of a 5-gear engine. So I want to show you how to effectively use technology to capture data and use it meaningfully. Data and information without meaning is just noise at the end of the day. I'll show you how to easily and effectively capture the data. We'll generate reports and take action based on the data within the reports, plus hold you accountable so that we can create new habits in the key areas that matter. If you're struggling with sleep, mental health, stress, overwhelm, anxiety, and looking for a greater sense of meaning, well-being, flow, confidence, productivity, coherence, and readiness, then I encourage you to register for a no obligation, doesn't cost anything, strategy session. As part of the process, you will complete a short survey, which will come through to me directly. I've got a limited people that I can work with at any one time, so I'll review it. And all going well, we'll have a strategy session at the time you selected. In the strategy session, we'll go through your completed survey and we'll see if there's a fit. If so, I'll share some very specific ways that I can work with you to help you to be in flow, creative, productive, and in your personal power. This is an era of human metrics. So if you're keen, let's get started today. I'll leave it up to you. Big love.